didn't prepare 45 minutes worth. So we may get out early. Then again, the Lord may decide to add to this and we get out late. You never know. Judges chapter 13, beginning in the first verse. And I want to talk about, I think it's the next 3 chapters. This is concerning Samson. Y'all all know about the story of Samson, so why am I bothered? Well, in reading it, I noticed a few things I hadn't noticed before. I hope to find something that y'all hadn't noticed before. Beginning in the 13th chapter, it talks about the birth of Samson, and even before his birth. His mother is not named in the Bible. His dad's name, I believe, is Manoah. If I maybe pronounced it wrong, I don't know. But his mother is one of the ladies that's listed in the Bible as being barren. She had no children. Probably had already lost hope of having a child. And it says the angel of the Lord appeared to her and told her that she would have a son, and she must not drink wine or strong drink. Depending on which version of the Bible you're using, King James says strong drink. New King James says some similar drink. And I don't remember off the top of my head what NIV says. But in other words, she needs to stay away from alcoholic drinks. And she must not must not eat anything unclean. The reason was because her son would be a Nazarite from birth. Now this is rather unusual because the Nazarite vow was something that a person took later in life, and usually only for a short period of time. A vow to follow the rules of God. Samson didn't voluntarily take this vow of the Nazarite. It was thrust upon him from birth. He said he would be a Nazarite until his death. Manoah was not there when the angel of the Lord came and spoke to his wife. Manoah prayed that God would send this person back to them so that he might find out more about how they should raise this child. The angel of the Lord came back again, and Manoah wasn't there. But his wife ran and got him. And the wording there is kind of, instead of Manoah asking, "Are you the person that spoke to my wife?" he said, "Are you the man who spoke to this woman?" I don't know why. I didn't understand that. But he said, yes, he was, and he repeated the same thing, that she must not drink wine or other strong drink, must not eat anything unclean, and that Samson would be, or the child would be a Nazarite. When the child was born, he was named Samson. But when this angel of the Lord was there on the second visit, Manoah said, let us detain you and fix a meal. And it was told, you may detain me, but I will not eat. Instructed him rather to make a sacrifice to God. And in the sacrifice, or while the flames were going upward, the angel of the Lord went up into heaven in the flame. And this worried both Manoah and his wife. Manoah even said, we have seen God, we will die. His wife said, well, if God wanted to kill us, he wouldn't have told us these things. He would have just killed us and got it over with. Then Samson was born, and we know nothing about his life until he's grown. You know, sometimes the Bible tells us things that we need to know, but it leaves out some things that we don't really have to know. In the 14th chapter, it says, Samson went down to Timnah, saw a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. And he went back to his father and said, I have seen a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore, get her for me as my wife. His father and his mother both tried to talk to him about the fact that there were women of their own group. God had told them not to intermarry with the Philistines. So here's Samson with a Nazarite about to violate one of God's laws. They tried to talk him into looking for a wife amongst their own people. No. This is the one I'm on. She pleases me well. So they go try to make arrangements, and when they go back for a feast, and on the way, Samson apparently was not with his mother and dad, although it indicates they all went. A lion attacked Samson. It says the Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily, and he killed this lion barehanded. Just tore it apart. He didn't even tell anybody about killing this lion. He went down and talked to the woman. She pleased Samson well. After some time, he returned to get her, and he sees this carcass of the lion, and behold, a swarm of bees has built a nest and made honey in the carcass of this lion. Samson, when he came back by and found this honey, took some of it and ate it, took some of it to his parents and they ate it. Another violation of the Nazarite law, touching anything dead. He killed this lion, he laid there. Well, he wasn't supposed to touch it, but he did. So So Samson, at the feast that he made, there were 30 people, 30 young men that came to be his escort, or what, I don't know exactly what to call it, but Samson says, I'm going to expound a riddle to you. If you can tell me before the end of this feast, which lasted 7 days, the answer to my riddle, I will give y'all 30 changes of clothing, which would have been one for each one of them. But if you can't tell me the riddle, the answer, then you must give me 30 changes of clothing. Well, they couldn't, his riddle was, out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. Well, they studied on it and they couldn't figure it out, so they went to this young woman that was to be Samson's wife and talked her into asking Samson for the answer to his riddle so that they wouldn't have to come up with all these 30 changes of clothing, and so that Samson would have to provide that to them. Well, Samson said, I have not told anyone, not my mother, not my father, nobody, the answer to this riddle, so why should I tell you? But eventually, with enough begging, she got Samson to tell her the answer to the riddle just before the 7 days feast was over. So she goes and tells the young men, and they come to say, yeah, they know the answer. Their answer was, what is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion? The wording there is kind of unusual. He says, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle. In other words, if you hadn't have gone behind my back and got this lady to tell you, to find the answer and then give it to you. In other words, he said you cheated. But they had answered it, so Samson gathers himself up and goes and kills 30 of their people and takes their clothing and pays off his debt because they answered the riddle. And Samson was so mad that he left. He went back home and he didn't take his wife with him. Her father then gives her to his companion, or his best man at the wedding. Some months later, Samson gets over his mad spell and decides he's gonna go get his wife. Her dad says, no, you can't do that. I've done given her to somebody else, to your companion. So Samson, rather upset about this, he captures, I believe it says 300 foxes. 300. Ties them to their tails together so that he's got 150 pairs of them tied together. He lights a torch and ties it from their tails and turns them loose. they go through the grain fields and they burn up all of the Philistines' grain. Apparently it says the standing grain and the shock, so it means if they were already shocking it, it was ripe grain. It would have burned real easy, wouldn't it? So this made the Philistines mad enough that they want to know who did it. They said, well, it was Samson. And he's the son-in-law of this man from Timnah, I believe it said, the Timonite. But so they couldn't do anything to Samson. He'd already gone. So they go and burn out this man and his daughters. And Philistines seem to be willing to kill people by fire. It's not an unpleasant death, I'm sure. Then things rock along. The Philistines sent an army to arrest Samson. They made a bunch of Israelites. The Israelites said, what are y'all doing up here coming to attack us? We haven't done anything. They said, no, we just came to arrest Samson. So they said, let us go get Samson for you. They went, they found Samson, they talked him into giving himself up. They bound Samson with 2 new ropes, turned him over to the Philistines. Well, as I had mentioned, Samson's strength was above that of the ordinary person. He broke the ropes that was tying him to, picked up the jawbone of a donkey and killed 1,000 men of the Philistines. He goes on his way. Samson meets a woman by the name of Delilah. Falls in love with Delilah. He wants her to love him. The Philistines realize that he's in love with Delilah, so they try to get her to find out what is the strength, what is the secret to Samson's great strength. What can we do to weaken him? She goes to question Samson, and he gives her one story after another. One time he said that if he was bound with what was it? If they bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings, not yet dried, then I'll become weak. So she ties him up with these 7 bowstrings. The Philistines come in to get him, and he killed him. That didn't bind him. Then he told her, if they bind me with new ropes that have never been used, I'll become weak. She tried that, and it didn't work. He just broke them like it says, as if they were nothing. She asked him again, And he gives her another story. Again, it was a lie. Finally, she just crying her heart out and said, "Why are you not telling me the truth? Why are you making fun of me? Why won't you tell me what it would take to make you an ordinary man, not so exceptionally strong?" And finally he told her, if his head was shaved, he would be. So one of the rules of the Nazarite was that they could never, ever let a razor touch their head. He said, if I'm shaved, if my head is shaved, I'll be no stronger than anybody else. She gets him to sleep, they shave his head, and sure enough, when the Philistines come in, he can't do anything. He's weaker than a kid. They take Samson, they put out his eyes, they put him in prison. They make fun of him. They have a big feast one day. They say, bring forth Samson and let him entertain us, which he did. And toward the end of this entertainment, there was a young boy was guiding him around because his eyes had been put out, he couldn't see nothing. Samson said, let me rest against the post that's holding this building up, the porch post. Says there were 3,000 of the elite men and women of the Philistines up on the roof of this building. Doesn't say how many was inside. And Samson asked God to give him his strength back. Of course, the hair was growing back on his head by then. He pushed those posts that held that building up apart. And he says he killed more people, more Philistines in his death, because he died that day too. He killed more Philistines on the day of his death than all of his life. I don't know if I know I've left part of the story out that those 3 chapters carry, because my memory's not that great yet. But I hope to have added something to you, what y'all knew about the story of Samson. Because I've read it over and over this week, and I saw a few things I hadn't seen before, or hadn't realized. I mean, I've read it enough times I had to have read it before, but it just didn't register, I guess. I don't know what else to add. Robert, would you dismiss us in prayer?
Lord, thank you for letting us be in your house today, Lord, to worship you. Lord, for the ones that could not be here today, just let them return to us next week, Lord. Lord, just let us take these messages and go forth to struggle, Lord. In your name, amen.